Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. What if I told you the reason someone walks back into your life after ignoring you has nothing to do with love, guilt, or destiny, and everything to do with a psychological gap you accidentally created inside them? That quiet return you keep hoping for is not romantic. It is neurological, and once you understand this, you will never wait the same way again. Before we go deeper, if you want psychology, not sugar-coated dating advice, subscribe to this channel and like this video. It tells the algorithm you're ready to hear truths most people avoid. I'm speaking to you as a psychologist and as someone who has watched thousands of reconnections happen for one reason alone. When a person ignores you, disconnects, your mind assumes they are done, but their mind is not experiencing closure, it's experiencing interruption. The human brain hates unfinished emotional loops. When connection ends without resolution, the brain doesn't relax, it scans, it replays, it waits. Here's the truth you were never taught. People do not come back because they miss you. They come back because their sense of control was disturbed. When you were available, predictable, emotionally reachable, they felt powerful without realizing it. Ignoring you gave them distance, but distance also removed confirmation. And without confirmation, their brain starts asking dangerous questions. Did I lose access? Did I miscalculate? Do they still care? Silence changes power dynamics. Not because you are playing a game, but because the brain fills silence with meaning. When you don't chase, explain, or collapse, you force their mind to do the work you were previously doing for them. This creates internal tension, and tension seeks release. The return is not about fixing things. It is about restoring emotional balance inside them. They want to check if the door is still open, if they still matter, if they can still affect you. This is why the message is casual, the call is random, the excuse is weak. It's not about you, it's about relieving pressure. And here is the part that should unsettle you. If you respond the same way you did before, the loop closes, the tension dissolves, and they disappear again. Understanding why they come back is not about hope, it's about leverage. Because once you see the mechanism, you stop romanticizing returns and start deciding what you will allow next. When someone comes back, the most dangerous mistake you can make is assuming their return equals emotional clarity. It doesn't. It signals emotional discomfort. There is a critical difference. One leads to rebuilding, the other leads to repetition, and most men never learn to tell them apart. Let me explain what actually happens in their mind during the silence. At first, they feel relief, space, freedom. Then something subtle shifts. Their brain stops receiving feedback from you. No reactions, no reassurance, no emotional mirror. And without that mirror, the ego destabilizes. Humans regulate their sense of worth through impact. When they can't feel their impact on you, anxiety grows. This anxiety doesn't feel like missing you. It feels like restlessness, irritation, a sudden curiosity about what you're doing, who you're talking to, whether you've moved on. This is not love awakening. This is relevance being threatened. And relevance is deeply tied to identity. Your absence forces comparison. The brain begins to replay moments, not because they were magical, but because they are unresolved. The mind exaggerates what is unfinished. That's why memories suddenly feel warmer after distance. Not because they improved, but because they were interrupted. Now here's the psychological trap. When they reappear, they often test the emotional temperature. They don't confess. They probe. A "hey stranger," a reaction to a story, a late-night check-in. These are not signals of commitment. They are diagnostics. They are checking whether the emotional environment is still safe and familiar. If you respond instantly, emotionally, or with relief, you confirm what they were hoping wasn't true, that they still have access without responsibility. And access without responsibility is comfort. Comfort kills urgency. Once urgency dies, so does effort. This is why people come back and leave again, not because you weren't enough, but because you unknowingly reassured them too quickly. You closed the psychological gap that pulled them back in the first place. Here's the uncomfortable truth most dating advice avoids. The return only has meaning if something inside them has changed, not their mood, their structure, their willingness to invest. If they return without clarity, direction, or accountability, they are not choosing you. They are soothing themselves. As a man, your power is not in withholding affection. It's in withholding emotional access until intention is visible. You don't punish. You observe. You let their actions answer the question their words avoid. Because the reason someone comes back after ignoring you is simple but brutal. They want relief from the tension your absence created. Whether they stay depends entirely on what you do with that moment. Most men never notice the subtle shift in energy when someone returns after ignoring them. They hear a familiar voice, see a notification, and immediately feel relief, excitement, hope. That excitement is dangerous. It's exactly what your mind wants you to feel so that it can override logic. You need to see this clearly. The emotional high you feel is not a signal of love. It's a signal of opportunity for them. Here's what happens when you feel that surge. Your brain releases dopamine, adrenaline, and oxytocin, the same chemicals that make you feel attachment. It tricks you into believing they returned because they truly care. But that's not the truth. Your brain is being hijacked by the chemistry of anticipation and unresolved tension. The return triggers a reward loop in your nervous system, and your instinct is to chase. That chase is exactly the leverage they were hoping to test. Think of it like this. When someone leaves, they plant a seed of curiosity in your mind. Silence and absence allow that curiosity to grow into obsession. When they return, your instinctual reaction is to water that seed, to feed it, to hope it blossoms into reconciliation. Meanwhile, they have already fed their own curiosity, tested whether they still matter, checked the emotional temperature, and experienced the power of knowing they can affect you. That's the real motive behind their return. The key difference between men who get trapped in this loop and men who don't is understanding one principle. Absence creates pressure. Pressure creates evaluation. Evaluation drives the return. It's not love. It's a psychological mechanism that works whether they realize it or not. Your job is not to feed their mechanism with emotional validation. You control the loop by controlling your response. This is where most men fail. They see the return, their ego flares, and they immediately rush to soothe it. I'm glad you're back. I missed you too. Every word you say too quickly closes the tension, neutralizes the pull, and gives them the illusion of control. And once that tension is gone, the momentary return loses its power. Your emotional restraint is your strongest leverage. If you respond calmly, with clarity, without eagerness, you reverse the dynamic. They feel the gap widening again, the tension returning, and their mind has to work to regain access. Suddenly the power shifts. You're no longer reacting, you're being evaluated. And in human relationships, the one being evaluated is the one desired. This is the first truth about why people come back. It is not about you. It is about the tension you created through absence and the way your presence, or lack of it, affects their mind. Understanding this changes everything. Let's dive deeper because this is where most men completely misunderstand what's happening. The person who ignored you doesn't return because of longing, nostalgia, or guilt. They return because their brain is in a state called cognitive dissonance, the uncomfortable tension between what they want and what they have. Your absence created a vacuum that their mind cannot tolerate, and that vacuum pulls them back. Think of it like gravity. When someone leaves without explanation, it's like you threw a weight into the air. Their mind can't let it go. Every interaction they had with you, every unspoken word, every unresolved argument or flirtation, it all comes rushing back in a chaotic loop. Their return is their attempt to stabilize that inner chaos. They are coming back to balance themselves, not necessarily to build with you. Here's the psychological trigger most men never notice. The gap you leave activates something called the Zeigarnik effect. The brain remembers unfinished tasks far more intensely than completed ones. Emotional connections work the same way. If they left things unresolved, ignored your presence, left questions hanging, walked away during tension, their brain obsessively keeps running what-if scenarios, and your absence feeds that loop like fuel. Now let's talk about what happens when they reach out. The initial message, call, or even random social media interaction isn't casual. It's testing. It's measuring whether you are still engaged, whether you are still emotionally available, whether you still care enough to respond urgently. Their mind is weighing risk versus reward. Can they dip back in without facing consequences? Can they reclaim influence without accountability? Here's where most men misstep. They confuse this test with genuine affection. They feel flattered, and in that moment, they give away control. They respond with enthusiasm, reassurance, or explanations. That immediately removes the tension that created the pull in the first place. They think they are winning back affection, but in reality, they are just closing the very gap that made them feel compelled to return. Emotional leverage is invisible, yet it is the most powerful tool you have. When you master it, you stop being reactive and start being selective. Your presence, your calmness, your measured responses, and your refusal to over-explain become magnets of intrigue. People come back not because they suddenly care. They come back because your absence disrupted their sense of stability, and now they must confront the tension you left behind. The brutal truth is this: if you mismanage your response, the cycle repeats. They return, you react, tension dissolves, they leave again. The pattern traps countless men in emotional whiplash. Understanding this loop is not just insight, it's protection. And the difference between chaos and control is your awareness of this invisible psychological law. Now, let's get even more uncomfortable, because this is where most men get emotionally hijacked without even realizing it. The return of someone who ignored you is often accompanied by subtle manipulation, but not always intentionally. Sometimes it's purely subconscious. Their brain is seeking resolution, yes, but it's also seeking reassurance that they still have influence over your emotions. And influence is addictive. Here's the truth that most men never see coming. When they come back, they are measuring your boundaries. They want to see if you are the same person who would chase, excuse, or over-explain. Your reactions are data for them. Every word, every pause, every tiny emotional shift is catalogued, interpreted, and stored. This is why people often come back and leave again. They are testing the waters, and your behavior dictates the outcome. What makes this dangerous is your instinctive reaction. When you feel relief, excitement, or joy at their return, your body floods with chemicals that mimic attachment. Dopamine spikes, adrenaline rises. Your brain tricks you into interpreting their return as love or validation, when in reality, it's just the effect of your own biology responding to tension. You are essentially rewarding behavior that was never intended to build a lasting connection. Here's what separates men who remain in control from those who get trapped: patience, emotional restraint, understanding that the return is not a gift, it is a test. Your calmness is more valuable than any affectionate words or gestures. When you do not react immediately, you force them to confront their own motives. They have to work for your attention. And human psychology rewards the one who controls access, not the one who chases. Another critical point: your value is amplified in absence, not because they missed you, but because the tension you create makes your presence meaningful. People take what is freely available for granted. What is scarce, controlled, or ambiguous suddenly becomes desirable. The return is a signal that the scarcity you unintentionally created is now being noticed, and notice is the first step toward real evaluation. Finally, understand this: not every return is worth reciprocating. Some come back only to soothe their own discomfort. Others return to rebuild. Your job is not to guess based on words, but to observe actions, measure consistency, and protect your own emotional boundaries. When you master this, you stop being a victim of their patterns and start leading your own emotional reality. The person who ignored you comes back for one reason above all. They are seeking to resolve tension in their own mind. The way you respond determines whether that return becomes a short-lived relief, a recurring cycle, or an opportunity for something real. Your power is in understanding this and acting deliberately. Here's the part most men never want to hear. When someone returns after ignoring you, their motives are rarely pure. They are not coming back because they suddenly realized your worth or missed you endlessly. They are coming back because your absence created an emotional vacuum, and humans are wired to fill voids, even if the effort is fleeting or self-serving. Understanding this is critical because it stops you from misreading the signals and losing control of your own emotional narrative. Think about it like this. The brain craves predictability. When you disappear from their daily interactions, whether through distance, no contact, or emotional detachment, you break that predictability. Their mind experiences a subtle panic, not the kind you consciously notice, but a subconscious itch that demands attention. They want to see if you're still there, still responsive, still influenced by them. This is not love. This is survival of ego. And here's the dangerous pattern most men fall into. They mistake validation for desire. The moment someone who ignored you returns, your brain screams, "This is your chance. Respond. Fix it. Be needed." You rush in, smile, over-explain, offer reassurance, even apologize for feelings you never needed to apologize for. Every reaction like this confirms a hidden dynamic. They hold power. You respond. Tension dissolves. Attraction diminishes. True leverage comes from observation, patience, and self-regulation. Let them come, let them speak, let them test your boundaries, but do not reward inconsistency. Do not close the gap too quickly. The very thing they seek, the reassurance, the emotional availability, is what will either pull them in or push them away, depending on how wisely you wield it. Another key insight: humans do not return to places or people they do not perceive value in. If they re-enter your life, it is because their subconscious is evaluating the cost-benefit of engagement. Your presence, your calm, your emotional independence, they notice it whether consciously or not. And this is where the real power lies, in showing that you are neither desperate nor predictable, that you are anchored in your own life. The return is a mirror. It reflects not their love, but your impact. It reveals how much influence you still hold over them. And influence is not obligation. Influence is choice. When you understand this, you no longer chase emotional highs or mourn their silence. You see the mechanics. You recognize the game. And most importantly, you gain control over whether this reconnection becomes a fleeting event, a repeating cycle, or a true turning point in your life. At the core, their return is a test of boundaries, a recalibration of emotional gravity, and a signal that the tension you created matters. How you respond will define not just this encounter, but every interaction that follows. Your power lies in presence, patience, and perception. Everything else is distraction. Now, let me give you the final, unfiltered truth, because this is where most men finally realize why they have been caught in cycles of hope and disappointment. The reason someone comes back after ignoring you is singular, unresolved tension. They are not returning out of love, regret, or realization. They are returning because your absence created a gap in their mind that demands closure, and only you can fill it. Every late-night text, casual "hey" or sudden appearance is a symptom, not a declaration. Their subconscious is weighing whether you are still available, whether your emotions can still be influenced, whether they still hold relevance. And make no mistake, relevance is power. You are suddenly in the position to determine whether their return is a fleeting comfort or a meaningful reconnection. That position is rare, and it is yours. Here is what separates men who remain trapped from men who gain clarity: awareness and control. Awareness of the psychological mechanisms at play and control over your own reactions. If you respond with urgency, excitement, or emotional neediness, you collapse the tension and the moment dies. If you respond with measured calm, clarity, and boundaries, you allow the tension to guide them, forcing them to reveal their true intentions. This is also where most men misunderstand letting go. Letting go is not ignoring. Letting go is maintaining your life, your standards, your emotional stability while observing the pattern of their return. You are no longer a passive player reacting to their whims. You are actively assessing whether they bring consistency, respect, and alignment with your life. And if they don't, their return ends exactly as it began, without consequence for you. The ultimate lesson here is brutal but empowering. People come back because their mind demands it, not their heart. The moment you realize this, you stop overvaluing their words and start prioritizing their actions. You stop interpreting return as validation and start reading it as data. Every text, call, or interaction becomes evidence of intention. And intention is the only thing that matters in building real connection. So the next time someone who ignored you walks back in, resist the instinct to chase or soothe. Pause, observe, measure, protect your energy. Understand that their return is not about fixing them. It's about seeing if they are willing to show up in a way that deserves your attention. Your choice determines the future of this connection, not their momentary curiosity. Remember, the reason someone comes back after ignoring you is always the same: unresolved tension. Your power is in recognizing it, controlling it, and deciding whether it becomes a cycle or a transformation. This knowledge is rare. Use it wisely. Your life, your emotional freedom, and your relationships will never be the same again.